Welcome to another edition of TSA Safety Matters. I'm your host, Greg Kerr from Stakeholder Relations, and today we're with Sarah Simons, TSSA's engineer for elevating and amusement devices, for a few thoughts on new Zipline regulations and its implementation coming May 31st of this year. So thanks for being with us today, Sarah.
Thank you.
So why are we strengthening the regulations around ziplines in the first place?
In 2006, when the first challenge course was built in Barrie for a commercial application, there was no standards that existed at all. So TSSA went about gathering requirements and consulting with industry, who at that point was very small, to develop our code adoption document, which is part 7 now. And that is our list of requirements for ziplines. As far as regulatory oversight, it was always there. It was just who was under our umbrella and who wasn't. So.
Now, but it reaches back, does it not? Because you had zip lines from way back that were part of complex courses, or even the military probably used it, right?
Right. So the industry has evolved in the sense that camp zip lines and challenge courses in their simplest form go back, could be 50 years. Project Adventure, there's evidence of them all over the place, but they were kind of low under the radar and they had a certain purpose. Then the zipline canopy tour eco-adventure industry out of Costa Rica and Mexico exploded. There are over 300 courses in Costa Rica, the last time I heard. And, with cruise ships and, people are going there and they're seeing that these things are awesome. And so there's that industry. And then what we have in Barrie is really, so this is treetop trekking, what we have in Barrie is really kind of a marriage of those two, is that it's a challenge course in the trees with some canopy tour elements. So those are called adventure parks. So, and then there's your engineered thrill zip line. That's really the most closest definition to a ride as we know them.
So one of the, I guess, deciding factors that we have in sort of defining, does this fall under a regulation, is its access to the public, number one, and whether it's part of an amusement device park, or like an amusement park, or things of that nature. So how did the camps sort of not skirt around that, but there was a gap that existed, correct? Right.
Historically, our regulations defined an amusement device as by being in an amusement park or a facility, and then it defined what that was. And I guess at one point that did the job, but with the growth of this industry and all others, that became not so feasible, because you could still have an amusement device, it just wasn't necessarily in an amusement park. So historically, camp zip lines with a certain purpose were exempted because they weren't in an amusement park. And then when the regulations changed and that exemption no longer applied, it's an amusement device because it's a zip line, which is defined, and because it's accessible to the public. So
now, you did go out there to conduct an audit and permit some variances that happened. What kind of things did you discover, and what did you develop outside of that?
What we did was we approached the industry because we knew about a group called the Association for Challenge Course Technology, and that they had a presence in that industry and they had a standard. So now
that's on the American side,
it's North American. And it's a voluntary membership, and it's an attempt to develop some standards and quality control and a quality of builders, because, they're not that complicated to some, so an inexperienced person may say, I can build these things for you, but really to what and how, and is it safe? So we knew about all these zip lines in camps, but we didn't really know anything about them. But we knew about ACCT. So we approached the camps and said, okay, you can have a variance for now if you meet a list of requirements that basically satisfied what regulation would, such as insurance, inspection, training, all of those things. So they submitted that to us and said, yes, I'm doing this, yes, I'm doing that, and so on and so forth. And then from that, we gave them a variance in the sense that we stayed back
and allowed ACCT to do the work.
to manage it. And then that isn't something that we can sustain indefinitely. And since that time, the industry had a chance to get to know us, get to know our requirements, and then we now at this point are going to regulate them fully as of May of this year.
Now you've been in communication with the Ontario Campgrounds Association from the early start, and recently attended their membership conference. What was the response like, and how are things going in that direction?
So the OCA asked us to come and speak, and we were happy to do that. We went there, and so it's a seminar type format where people can go to the ones that they want to attend. So it was an information session on regulatory requirements of ziplines. So the people in the room were the people that own a zipline in a camp. So it wasn't everybody there. So the people that were there, they had good questions. They actually showed, some of them communicated appreciation for how this has been handled. And for overall, it was generally very well received. So myself and Sunny Silva, presented to them and just gave them basically TSSA 101.
So and how many are there in camps across Ontario right now anyway? It's not a huge amount, but...
The fact is, the ones that we know about, it's about 40. There could be more that we don't know about. And so, but the ones that we are aware of, and I think we do have a good handle on that now, I would say it's about 40. 40 camps.
And you also attended the ACCT, there was a conference or seminar in February. How did that turn out, and did you see sort of irregularities between their standard and ours?
So I wasn't able to attend this year because their seminar was on the exact same day as the OCA conference.
Oh, okay.
So they asked me if I was going, because I usually go every year, and I said, well, I can't because I'm going to OCA, and that seemed far more important. That industry is changing. It started out as just a challenge course organization, and then with the explosion of this commercial zipline industry and the challenge course and the eco adventure and these adventure parks, that they've grown and their membership has changed as far as the people that are there. And so they're madly writing standards. They've had 2 revisions since then, and they're making great progress.
And they're trying to keep pace, though, with just the rush of the market, right?
And just like us, it's the same thing. Things grow faster than you can write documents to keep up with them. So they're facing the same challenges we are. And the ASTM standard that's being developed for aerial challenge courses, it's a lot of the same players. ACCT people, TSSA people, we all are working together on these documents.
Because ACCT is also accredited by ANSI, are they not?
Yes.
The American National Standards Institute.
Yes. They are an accredited standards developer.
Right.
But the ANSI rules say that you can't have 2 standards for the same thing, right? And I know that there was
common sense.
Right. And you need to have consensus of the industry, and so I think they're finally getting close to getting their standard recognized as the challenge course standard.
So what can owners and operators sort of expect come May 31st with the changes that are coming?
So there's 2 categories of camps. There's ones that, if you have a zip line and you've never had a license and you don't have a permit, you're just like any other new zip line, and you need to go through our full process of review and initial inspection.
And those are very few to non-existent, right?
They are as far as camps are concerned.
Yes.
There's 1 or 2, and generally they thought they had a variance, and because camps tend to have staff turnover, and a lot of them are volunteers, and they're seasonal, so sometimes I think there's a bit of a document management challenge there. So, but the ones that have a variance, we've essentially, and this is what we communicated at OCA, and through any avenue we can, is that they're essentially grandfathered in. They had an audit inspection last year. So this year, they are now under full regulatory oversight. So just like anybody else, they have to book their periodic inspection. And when they receive their renewal package in the mail, they are obligated to renew their license and their permit. And then our inspectors will be going out this year for a periodic.
Now, when you did that initial audit, what kind of things were you finding? It's not. It doesn't have to do with the actual design, really. It's more on the other aspects.
Right, and what we confirmed is what we speculated, because as far as those camps go, they had a variance. Therefore, they met ACCT. Therefore, they are of a simple design and a very similar design. So it's 2 poles or 2 trees with a cable hanging between, and it's a lot of sag, so there's a belly in the middle. And they all operate essentially the same way. What our inspectors saw was a lot of the same thing, with slight variations in their particular equipment choices and where they're located in the camp. But basically, we were able to confirm a general consistent level of quality across the board, and that they were in fact, we were able to see the report from last year's inspection by their professional vendor member, and there's 2 of them in Ontario currently, and so we were able to see the report. We knew that one of those guys was there and that everything was on the level.
So these are the ACCT members that were actually assisting them with all their safety regulations or the developments that they had then. But that's changing now too, because you're going to require those individuals to write exams. Is that correct?
Correct. So, because what initially happened with the variance process is that, the regulation of them was essentially in their hands, but now we're going to be taking that over, and we invited them to write a mechanics exam. So they become a Zipline Mechanic. And by that definition, now these camps can get a permit from us because they have a mechanic that's licensed by us, certified by us, to meet our regulations.
And who is in the know and sort of the go-between, who makes sure that all the safety compliance is there.
Right. And it's great because it's the same people that have always been doing this.
The long-term relationships that they've developed.
And they're truly the expert on that type of device. And they constructed that equipment. They know the camps. They know who their clients are. So it just made sense for that to continue rather than bringing in, a ride mechanic from somewhere else
who's learning something new.
Right. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out. So that's what they're doing now.
Excellent. So when our inspectors go out for their pre-inspection, what kind of things will they be looking at, or how are they going to help the owners operators?
So for this year, when they're going this year for a periodic, so meaning they were there last year and they did an audit, and now they're going this year as their annual spring inspection, they will be looking for records of training and the documents that we've since required now that they're basically fully licensed. So the mechanic will have already been there to do the spring maintenance, tune-up, so to speak. And, any new equipment that they required will be there. And they'll have gone there and done, a full-day training. And then the inspectors will, take a look at their equipment. They'll be looking at all the harnesses. They'll look at where they're storing them. If they have trees, they're going to be looking for an arboreal assessment that the trees were looked at by somebody.
And that's to ensure stability and or the trees rotting from the inside.
Right, to verify tree health.
Yeah.
So, because they know the strength of trees, but they have to be healthy. So, engineers like utility poles. We like structure, but this industry is not, doesn't always make us happy. So they construct in trees. So that's what they'll be. And then the other element is rescue. Because our regulations require, you have to be able to rescue these people. And so if something happened, it's rare, but it does happen. Usually most rescues occur because somebody
user behavior or fault or
user fear. And I mean, I've climbed in some of these courses, and I know what that fear feels like.
User fear is?
And they get to a point where they say, you know what, I don't want to do that rope bridge, and so they will, an attendant can take them off that system, put them on another system, and gently lower them to the ground. And they say that that's probably 90% of their rescues, so to speak, is a evacuation.
Right. Similar, I guess, to the ski lift industry, right? Because they have their own evacuation procedures.
Right. So it's basically like a chicken out.
Yeah.
A plan B. Yeah. But then there are some cases where, in theory, someone could get stuck on the line, like if there was some kind of an entanglement, I mean, there's a lot of measures in place to make sure that doesn't happen. It is, or something jams, then there's another type of rescue where you have somebody in the span of the zip line. So you have to go out, retrieve them, and bring them back, and then you do a platform lower. So it's kind of a two-step rescue.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure the camps are looking forward to this opening season, and they want things to be safe too.
Yep.
So we can get our riders out there.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for being with us today, Sarah.
My pleasure.
Stay tuned for more TSA safety matters, and we always welcome your feedback, and you can give that directly connected with the article right at the bottom to leave a comment, or you can do it to ask TSSA one of the links at the top. So stay tuned for more.